All right. Well, welcome back to the community of wisdom seekers, where we are seeking wisdom of individuals in our community and really across the country. And here we have some local Wichitans tonight. So we're excited for episode 9. We have both Dalia and Richard Vargas joining us, and they are the owners and operators of Interlingual Interpreting Services. And they provide legal and medical interpretation and translation business in the Wichita area. And so they're going to just talk a little bit about business. Sounds like they're going to talk a little bit about life, talk about faith, and how they just intertwine all of it. So really excited to hear from you and hear your story. And we just appreciate you coming on tonight and giving us your time and sharing your wisdom with us. So with that being said, I will let you have the floor.
Hi, Daniel, and thank you so much for allowing us to have this space with you and be able to share a little bit about us and our agency, Interlingual Interpreting Services. My name is Dalia, and this is my husband, Richard Vargas, and we are very happy to share a little bit about us, and I'll just turn it over to Richard so he could share his personal story.
Hi, Daniel. Again, thank you very much for doing this, for putting all this together. We have really enjoyed watching all these previous episodes. We watched the one last night with Tommy. It was amazing. It was very motivational, very inspiring. And, if we can just get something from, each video that we get, I think, you've done a lot for the community. So thank you again for doing this. Just a little bit about myself. I was born in Peru, in South America, from a small town. Only child, but I was surrounded with a lot of family. When I was about 8, 9 years old, we actually moved to Barcelona, to Spain. We lived there for about 5 years. It's a beautiful country, beautiful place. I have great memories from Barcelona. We really enjoyed living there. Eventually, we made our way to Wichita in 2004. Most of my father's side of the family lives here. So that's how we ended up here. And to tell you the truth, I think that's how my interest in maybe not interpreting, but my interest in the cultures and getting to know different people, I think that's where it started from. Going to 3 different countries, many different cities actually in each country. I got to experience different cultures, traditions. Got to meet different people from different walks of life. And I just enjoy that. It's really amazing just to see what other people experience, how other people live. And I think that's where my interest in other cultures came about. Once I was here in Wichita, I did my schooling here. I graduated from Wichita State with a bachelor's in psychology in about 2011. I was doing some interpreting there as well. I got introduced to the interpreting world back then. But once I graduated, I was working for a nonprofit. I had a regular job, just regular business type of work, and I was happy with what I was doing. But I always felt like I was missing something. I was missing that connection with the people. I missed going to different places, interacting with people, just trying to learn more about there's different people and their traditions, their cultures. So that's when I started going to start interpreting again, basically, and I was doing more of the legal side, more of the hearings, more of the criminal trials. For me, it was very, I enjoyed doing that. I was really happy doing that. I learned a lot. I was also doing some of the hospitals and clinics interpreting as well, and eventually the opportunity came to be business owners, to own Interlingual Interpreting Services. And I was very blessed to do this with my wife, with Dalia. So now she tells me what to do at home and at work as well.
Yeah, that's the beauty about being a business owner and his wife. But yeah, a little bit about myself is that I was born and raised in Garden City, Kansas. And both of my parents are from El Salvador. It's in Central America. So I'm actually first generation to obtain a bachelor's degree, and I got it in social work. I graduated WSU in 2012, and I actually met Richard here at WSU. And I was going full time, at WSU. In between classes, I had a part-time job. So I was so busy. And then I was able to squeeze something in, like an interpreting job. And I actually started that because I saw how Richard had a passion and being a professional in that field. So he's like, hey, why don't you start as well? So that's when I started interpreting. When I graduated, I actually spent 4 years in the social work field. And the beauty about being bilingual is really everywhere that you go to, your jobs that I had, I could definitely use my Spanish, and my English. So I could talk to, the Hispanic community. And, as a social worker, there's so much passion and you really put yourself out there. So I was able to do that. And when I was doing, interpreting on the side, I took that full time, and that's where my journey as an interpreter began. I want to go back to when we first went to a church. It's the same church we go to now. At the beginning, there's only a couple Hispanics. The main pastor, he did the sermon in English. And at that time, he had another pastor with him, and she would translate the sermon using a microphone, and the rest of the Hispanics had an earpiece. So seeing that, Richard and I took on helping her out and interpreting the services. So, it's such a beauty to be able to use the gifts that we have to be able to communicate, the sermon, something that means so much to, everyone else. It's just something beautiful. And, something happened that a lot more Hispanics were able to come to our church. And we're one of, very few churches that at this time have the services in English and in Spanish. So when we had so many Hispanics come on to our church, there wasn't enough earpieces. And that was definitely a blessing because, that meant that we were getting out there also, the word of God to the Hispanic population. So we started interpreting right beside the pastor, and that's what we do till now. We interpret the sermon right alongside with the pastor. So that was just a blessing for both of us to be able to do that. And also, we have this gift to be able to give, and we're just blessed to have a gift that we could not only apply at church, but also in our job. So I talked a little bit about myself, and Richard will talk more about Interlingual Interpreting Services.
Yeah, so Interlingual was actually founded in 1985. We've been serving the courthouses in really Wichita and surrounding counties since then. We work with the Sedgwick County Court, with the federal court, and just different courts around, Wichita and then other counties. We do a lot of work with clinics, with different hospitals. We have done conferences, private events, employee meetings, just a lot of different things. We also have experience translating documents, employee handbooks, manuals, brochures, flyers. We have done transcripts, translations of videos as well, and audios. And lately, with everything that's going on, we're really promoting, our services as far as, translating websites for different businesses, different content, different brochures, flyers, because we feel like there's not much information for the Hispanic community and then other communities for that matter, actually. We were just talking about, with all this coronavirus thing going on, and, there's a lot of information that I see in English for, the stimulus package, business loans, resources available for the community, people that might not be working, but we haven't seen a lot of information in Spanish or other languages. So, we kind of feel like, these other communities are being left out. We have taken upon ourselves to, translate some of that content, to have it available in different languages. We're working now with different businesses, actually, is trying to have information available for other communities. And, that's also that can benefit different businesses. If you think about it, you're reaching a larger audience, you're reaching more people. Everybody wants to feel like they belong to the community they live in, that they fit in. And if you have, many businesses and, but the community doesn't have access to that, or they don't understand what they offer, what they do, you're really missing out on all those opportunities. So, that's one thing we're really working on with different businesses, is letting them know that, that's a service that we can offer. We can translate their social media, their websites, come up with content, little things that we can do to involve the community. So that's kind of what we're doing. It's just a beautiful thing to come together, mix all the cultures. We actually had the presentation for our daughter a few weeks ago at our church. And, we had the worship team playing songs in Swahili, in an African language. And then we had the service in Spanish and also English. And, if you were just there, you will see all these, cultures getting together and, with singing, worshiping. And then, we had a time of fellowship, eating together, sharing our foods and our traditions. And it's just great, at the end of the day, we live in this country with so many cultures, so many people from different countries. And, the best thing we can do is just, live together, in a good way, trying to involve everybody. So, that's what we're doing right now, promoting ourselves, trying to include the society, the community. And hopefully, people can trust that we can do that service for them.
Yeah, and a little bit of what Richard said is that, we really want to promote these businesses to reach out to a bigger audience. There's so many communities that can be reached by just translating your content. And we have, more than 12 languages that we have, interpreters just waiting to translate really anything. And that's something that we can offer everyone. So it's great. It's a great business. At this time, I know that we see some people that are hanging around, and I'd like to open it up for, some comments or questions people have. And thanks again, Daniel, for giving us the opportunity today.
Absolutely. And I have a couple questions for you before I open it up to everybody. One of them is, how many languages do you interpret? I know you talked a lot about Spanish, but I believe I heard you, Dalia, present before. How many do you translate, interpret for?
Personally, I only, do Spanish and English, but we have Thai, we have Cambodian, we have Vietnamese, Rwanda, Swahili, Somali, Portuguese, French, Arabic as well. And I know I'm forgetting a couple more.
It's about 12 or so.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Nice. And another question I have is, when people have the ability to speak multiple languages, someone asked me this today, what language do you think in? What language do you dream in, right? When you have all these different opportunities, what is it? And what would you consider like the native tongue, I guess?
That's a great question, because when I first came here, and I had, relatives or cousins that they were born in Peru, but they came here at a young age. I will ask them, what language do you think in? Yeah. They will say English. For me, it's I want to say it's probably 95% Spanish. When I think, or I think something in my head, unless I'm in like work mode, or maybe I don't know, in the middle of hearing, or doing some type of work, and if I'm doing something in English, I will start thinking in English. But yeah, mainly for me, I since I lived most of my life, well, actually now probably half of my life, in Spanish-speaking countries, personally for me, it's my go-to language is Spanish anyway.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. also have a question on, um, you know, I know my dad has done some of this. He works at a hospital and he speaks Spanish and English. And I know he doesn't really like it because of the intensity of some of the situations and how important it is that he translates correct. And he just felt that overwhelming pressure and was like, man, if I mess up, like this could be life or death type of space. And it sounds like at some level you're doing some of that work. So just being able to manage that stress and even in with law, you know, having to deal with just people's stories and what they're saying. I mean, you're kind of involved. So what is it like emotionally going through some of those things for you? And how do you stay emotionally strong through all that?
You know, that's a great question. For me, you know, I've done many, like I said, trials, hearings, and, you know, it's important to have a good support system. You know, I can share a lot of things with Dalia, or again, you know, for me personally, it's faith. You know, is trying to have that time where I can, you know, the things that I have, you know, in God, because there's some heavy stuff. You know, it depends on the people, I guess. For me personally, it might be, you know, we've done some things where, you know, with rape and things like that, and sometimes you hear, you know, directly from the kids or victims. So there's some things that can be very heavy. You know, and even just in life in general, I think it's great to have a great support system, whether it's a spouse or a friend or, you know, somebody at the church or just somebody you trust with that information, because it can definitely take a toll on you. And then, you know, thankfully, you know, we have kids, we have two children. Most of the time when I come home, I tend to forget about, you know, the things that I've seen and I've heard. So that's definitely a great thing. But, you know, also with Dalia being in the social work background, I know she has seen too a lot of things.
Awesome. Another thing I'll say, and then I'll open it up, is being able to worship with different cultures, right? And seeing people worship in their culture. It's a little different. I've been to Uganda and Kenya, and just the amount of dancing that they do when they worship, you know, and
Yes.
they try to get you involved. It's really cool, but it's really neat. If people are listening to this and they haven't experienced that, I do strongly encourage to get out of the country or go to a church that's just a different culture and just worship you know, our Father in a different way. I think it's eye-opening, and it really allows you to worship differently too, I think, after the fact. So I want to dance all the time now whenever I'm worshiping, so it's pretty cool. Awesome. Well, I'll open it up here and see if we do have any questions from anybody that is on. So I have done that, and all of you that are on, there's a little red mic. If you hit that, it'll unmute you if you have a question, or if you just want to give a comment or just love on them here. Don't be shy. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to figure out the unmute button.
That's okay.
All right. Well, with that then, I'll just say thank you both for doing what you do. Actually, I do have another question. So working together and also having to come home together. I know a lot of times that doesn't work out very well. So how have you two managed to make that work out and make that happen? It seems like it is a very joyful situation. So give us some insight, because I know most people struggle with just part of it. So how do you do both?
Well, I know on my part, Richard goes to work earlier than I do. And so he wakes up in the morning, gets ready, and I go like an hour later or so. So that gives me also time to get the girls ready, you know, and be able to mentally prepare also. And once we're in the workplace, it's pretty nice actually. It's, you know, we still have this relationship as, you know, husband and wife. You kiss each other, you say good morning, and you just go on your day. Richard usually goes out and interprets, you know, all of a sudden appointments come up for federal court. So he goes ahead and takes care of those. And I am the one that really stays more in the office and does the like payroll, any phone calls, emails that we may have. So we really, it's kind of like not seeing each other. But these days, due to, what's going on, we've actually seen more of each other, and it's kind of gone a little off lately to where I like to go outside on my own now, but it will just take an hour to be on my own, and then I'll be back inside. But it's a good feeling to come home, because it's like you leave that behind, and it's something that it's really important for us to, whenever we come home, it's home based. It's our focal point is our girls, and loving on them and loving on each other and turning off the work mode.
And I think, and I believe Tommy said this yesterday as well. It's very important to take time for yourself. I know we get busy and things like that, but it's very important to take, that time away for yourself. Sometimes, I like to get up, even earlier in the morning, just to have that quiet time, pray, just, meditate, the time ahead, because then, you might say, I'll do it later, but then, the phone calls start happening, and, things come up, or you get lazy. So I think, and this is good for everybody, is to take some time, apart, some time during the day to just focus on yourself, and, just take that time to be quiet and don't worry about everything else.
It's great. And right now we have all the opportunity in the world for that. And
Yes.
It's interesting, because I think that's a part of the reason why people are struggling, because it's an uncomfortable space. We like to stay busy. We like to stay distracted. We like to just constantly be involved, and don't really take time to sit quiet and just think and process and journal and pray and just really see where we're at, deal with our emotions, and instead of and come through some resolution on our own, and versus trying to seek all these other things to fill it. So cool.
Definitely.
Well, thank you too. If there's anything else you want to say, maybe how we can get in touch with you, if we come across someone that could use your services, or if we could use your services, what's the best way to connect?
You can look us up in our personal Facebooks if you want, Richard Vargas, Vargas, or Dalia. Look us up on Facebook, Interlingual Interpreting Services. Our office phone number is 316-263-2525. Again, you can contact us for any business-related questions. And also, if you want to experience, what it's like worshiping in different languages, we have, great connections actually with some churches here that do their service in Swahili and other languages. If you guys want to experience how the music is and how they do things, feel free to message us, give us a call. We'll let you know how, when those meetings happen. They're trying to do an international type of service every month now. So that's great. But again, any questions anybody has, feel free to give us a call. Look us up on Facebook. Just give us a call.
And the neat thing about Facebook, on our page of Interlingual Interpreting Services, is that we are pretty active, and we keep it updated. If there's content that is out there, from the health department or something going on, we always like to go ahead and interpret or translate the content and be able to post it on, so people in other languages are able to know what it says.
Awesome. Very good. Well, that will be a wrap for episode 9. Thank you both for just giving us your time again, your wisdom, and just sharing your heart with us. And I look forward to helping you find business, and possibly having you do some business with us, and also joining you for some of those international worship opportunities. I think that'd be great too.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.